Almost every man overlooks something important, even though it matters more than he realizes. And interestingly, it is something women quietly appreciate, even if they rarely talk about it. Curious? They are good-looking, confident, maybe even successful with money and status. Think about this for a moment. You have probably seen men who seem to have it all together, yet somehow they still struggle to create deep, meaningful connections with women. Something just does not click, and they cannot figure out why. The truth is, attraction is not built only on appearance, wealth, or social standing. What many men fail to notice are the small, subtle behaviors that leave a lasting impression. These are not loud or obvious moves. They are quiet, powerful actions that often go unnoticed. Yet they shape how a woman truly feels about you. In this video, I am going to reveal some of those hidden desires women experience but rarely express openly. These are not typical dating tips you hear everywhere. They are rooted in psychology and timeless human behavior. And when understood properly, they can completely transform the way women perceive you. Now imagine this for a second. What if you could connect with a woman on a level she does not even fully understand herself? What if you could stand out effortlessly without chasing her, without over-explaining yourself, and without trying to prove your worth? Just by knowing how to make her feel safe, appreciated, and emotionally understood. That alone would instantly place you ahead of most men. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you are unaware of these deeper principles, you are already at a disadvantage. You might lose attraction that could have grown into something meaningful. You might miss out on a connection that could have stayed in her mind long after you were gone. That is why understanding this matters so much. And once these ideas truly click for you, especially the last one, the way you see attraction and relationships will never be the same again. And if you are really honest with yourself for a moment, you might already know this feeling. Maybe you have been in situations where everything seemed right on the surface. The conversation was flowing, there was laughter, there was even a sense of mutual interest, and yet somehow it slipped away. No clear reason, no dramatic mistake, just a slow fading of interest that left you confused. And the hardest part is not even the rejection, it is not knowing what you did wrong. That uncertainty stays with you. It makes you question yourself. It makes you wonder if you are missing something everyone else seems to understand. And here is where things start to shift, because the answer is not in becoming someone else. It is not in memorizing lines or trying to impress harder. It is in understanding the emotional experience you create for her. That is where real connection lives. So as you listen to this, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Think about the moments that worked and the ones that did not. What was she feeling in those moments? Did she feel relaxed, safe, and seen? Or was there a subtle tension, something unspoken that created distance? This is where your awareness begins to change everything. And I want you to stay with me, because what you are about to understand is not just going to improve your dating life. It is going to completely reshape how you connect with women on a deeper, more meaningful level. Before we go further, let me ask you something simple but powerful. When was the last time someone made you feel completely at ease? Like you did not have to perform, impress, or prove anything? Just think about that feeling for a second. That quiet sense of comfort, where you could just be yourself without pressure. That feeling is rare, and when it happens, you remember it. Now imagine being the person who creates that feeling in someone else. Imagine being the one she associates with calm, safety, and emotional clarity. That is the shift we are talking about here. And if you are serious about becoming that man, then take a moment right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what part of connection you struggle with the most. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it creates a space where we can actually grow together and understand these dynamics on a deeper level. I am Emily Carter, host of the Female Game YouTube channel. And what I am about to share with you is something most men never fully understand. Not because it is complicated, but because it requires a different kind of awareness. It is not about doing more. It is about noticing more, feeling more, understanding the subtle emotional language that exists beneath the surface of every interaction. And once you start seeing it, you cannot unsee it. It changes the way you walk into a room. It changes the way you listen. It changes the way women respond to you without you having to force anything. Now let's move into something most men underestimate. The quiet impact of touch before intimacy. Imagine you are on a date. The atmosphere feels right, conversation is smooth, both of you are enjoying the moment. There is laughter, eye contact, shared stories. On the surface, everything looks perfect, but deep down, something feels slightly off. She is there, she is engaged, but she is not fully open. There is a subtle distance you cannot quite explain. Later, you drop her home, maybe send a message, and then nothing. No response, just silence, and you are left replaying the entire evening in your mind, trying to figure out where it went wrong. This is the moment where many men unknowingly lose momentum, because they believe attraction is built through words alone. They focus on being interesting, being funny, saying the right things. And while that matters to a certain extent, it is not what creates emotional connection. Women do not connect only through conversation. They connect through how they feel in your presence, through the emotional environment you create, through the subtle cues that tell them whether they can relax or whether they need to stay guarded. One of the most overlooked ways to influence that feeling is through calm, intentional touch. One of the most overlooked ways to influence that feeling is through calm, intentional touch. And I want to be very clear here. This is not about being physical in a forced or calculated way. It is not about trying to escalate or push boundaries. It is about natural, respectful, and effortless moments that align with the energy between you. A light touch on her arm when you are sharing a laugh. A brief, warm touch on her shoulder when guiding her through a door. A hug that feels unhurried, grounded, and genuine. These are small things, almost invisible, but they carry emotional weight far beyond what most men realize. Let me give you a simple example. There was a man who once shared his experience with me. He said he used to go on dates where everything seemed perfect but nothing ever progressed. Then one day, he stopped trying so hard to impress and started focusing on being present. During one of his dates, instead of filling every silence with words, he allowed moments to breathe. When she laughed, he gently touched her hand for a brief second. Not to impress, not to signal anything, just as a natural extension of the moment. He said the entire energy shifted. She leaned in more, her tone softened. The conversation felt deeper without him trying to make it deeper. Words create interaction, feeling creates connection, and touch, when done with awareness and respect, amplifies that feeling in a way words cannot. And for the first time, he felt like she was actually connecting with him, not just talking to him. This is the difference between interaction and connection. For many women, emotional safety carries more weight than physical attraction. This is something that often gets misunderstood. Attraction is not just about how you look or what you say. It is about how she feels when she is around you. Does she feel tense or relaxed? Does she feel evaluated or accepted? Does she feel pressure or ease? These questions are being answered in her mind constantly, often without her even realizing it. And here is where most men go wrong. They rush. Not always physically, but energetically. They try to move things forward too quickly because they are afraid of losing the moment. But in doing so, they create pressure. And pressure is the fastest way to break emotional safety. Real attraction builds in the absence of pressure. It grows when there is space, when there is patience, when there is a sense that nothing is being forced. I want you to think about your own behavior for a second. When you are on a date, are you truly present? Or are you constantly thinking about what to say next, how to impress, how to move things forward? Because she can feel that, even if you say all the right things, that underlying tension creates distance. But when you slow down, when you become aware of the moment, when your actions are calm and intentional, something shifts. She starts to relax. Her guard lowers, and connection begins to form naturally. Another important layer to this is awareness of her responses. This is where emotional intelligence comes into play. If she leans in, if she maintains eye contact, if her body language opens up, these are signs of comfort. If she pulls back, becomes quieter, or creates physical distance, those are signals too. And the key is not to react defensively or try to fix it immediately. The key is to respect it, to adjust, to give space when needed. This is what creates trust, and trust is not built through big gestures. It is built through consistency, through small moments where she feels seen and respected, through subtle actions that show you are paying attention, not just to what she says, but to how she feels. Over time, these moments create a sense of emotional ease, and that ease becomes associated with you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone and felt instantly comfortable around them without knowing why? No tension, no awkwardness, just a natural sense of ease. That is not an accident. That is the result of emotional presence, of someone who is not trying to take something from the interaction, but is simply there, grounded and aware. And that is exactly the kind of presence that creates attraction on a deeper level. Restraint also plays a powerful role here. In a world where most people act impulsively, the ability to slow down stands out. Not rushing into physical closeness, not overstepping boundaries, not trying to escalate every moment, this communicates confidence in a way words never can. It shows that you are in control of yourself, that you are not driven by desperation or neediness, and that sense of control is deeply attractive. As you start to understand this, you will notice something interesting. You do not need to do more, you need to do less. But with more awareness, less talking, more listening, less forcing, more allowing, less rushing, more presence. And in that space, something powerful begins to happen. The connection stops feeling like something you are trying to create and starts feeling like something that is naturally unfolding. And here is where I want you to really pay attention, because what comes next goes even deeper than this. It is not just about what you do in the moment, but about how you shape the emotional experience she carries with her long after the interaction ends. And most men never even realize this part exists. What most men never realize is that attraction does not end when the interaction ends. In many ways, that is where it actually begins to deepen, because long after you have said goodbye, long after the messages stop for the night, something continues to exist in her mind, a feeling and emotional residue of how she experienced you. And this is where the real shift happens. Because a woman may forget the exact words you said, she may not remember every detail of the conversation, but she will always remember how you made her feel. That feeling lingers. It shapes whether she thinks about you again, whether she smiles when your name appears on her phone, or whether you slowly fade into the background like so many others. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you focused on saying the perfect thing, crafting music, the perfect message, trying to create the perfect impression while completely overlooking the emotional impact you are leaving behind? This is where most men lose without even realizing they are in the game, because they treat attraction like a performance instead of an experience. And experiences are not remembered for their logic, they are remembered for their emotion. Let me give you a scenario that might feel familiar. You go on a date, everything seems to go well, there is conversation, laughter, even some level of connection. But after it ends, you immediately start thinking about what to do next. Should you text her? How long should you wait? What should you say to keep her interested? And in that process, you unknowingly shift from presence to strategy, from connection to control. And that shift is subtle, but it changes everything. Because now, instead of allowing the connection to breathe, you are trying to manage it. And that creates a different kind of energy, one that often feels forced, even if your intentions are good. Now imagine a different approach. Instead of rushing to fill the space after the interaction, you allow it to exist. You let the experience settle. You give her the opportunity to process how she felt around you. You do not immediately chase reassurance. You trust the connection you created. This does not mean you disappear or play games. It means you respect the natural rhythm of human emotion. That is the difference. When you create a strong emotional experience, you do not need to constantly remind her you exist. She already feels it. And that feeling pulls her back to you naturally. This is where emotional imprinting comes into play. Every interaction leaves a trace, a subtle imprint that influences how she perceives you moving forward. If the experience felt rushed, pressured, or slightly off, that imprint carries uncertainty. But if it felt calm, genuine, and emotionally safe, that imprint creates curiosity. It makes her want to understand you more. It makes her wonder what it would feel like to be around you again. And curiosity is powerful, much more powerful than certainty. Because when everything is obvious, there is nothing left to explore. But when there is a sense of depth, something she cannot fully define, it keeps her engaged on a different level. This is why restraint and mystery, when they come from a place of authenticity, create such a strong impact. Not because you are hiding who you are, but because you are not trying to reveal everything all at once. You allow layers to unfold naturally. I want you to reflect on something here. Have you ever been around someone who revealed everything about themselves too quickly? Their past, their emotions, their intentions, all at once. At first, it might feel like honesty, but very quickly it becomes overwhelming. There is no space left for discovery, no room for curiosity to grow, and without curiosity, attraction loses its depth. This is why pacing matters, not just in physical actions, but in emotional expression. Sharing parts of music yourself gradually, allowing moments to build on each other, creates a sense of progression. It makes the connection feel like a journey instead of a transaction. And that journey is what keeps her emotionally invested. Another important layer here is emotional contrast. If every moment feels the same, the experience becomes flat. But when there is variation, moments of lightness mixed with moments of depth, moments of silence mixed with moments of laughter, it creates a richer emotional experience. Think about the conversations you have had that stayed with you. They were not just informative, they had rhythm. Moments of silence mixed with moments of laughter, it creates a richer emotional experience. Think about the conversations you have had that stayed with you. They were not just informative, they had rhythm. Moments of silence mixed with moments of laughter, it creates a richer emotional experience. Think about the conversations you have had that stayed with you. They were not just informative, they had rhythm. They had flow. They had moments that made you feel something different. You can apply this in a very simple way. Instead of always trying to be impressive or entertaining, allow space for genuine moments. Ask questions that go beyond surface-level topics. Share experiences that reveal something real about you, not to impress, but to connect. And then allow silence when it happens. Do not rush to fill it, because sometimes those quiet moments are where the deepest connections form. Let me give you a practical exercise you can start using immediately. The next time you are in a conversation with a woman, focus less on what you are going to say next, and more on what she is feeling in that moment. Notice her tone, her expressions, her pauses. When she shares something meaningful, do not immediately respond with your own story. Instead, stay with her experience. Ask a follow-up question. Let her expand. This simple shift changes the dynamic completely. It makes her feel heard, not just listened to. And that distinction is powerful. Another exercise is to become comfortable with slowing down your responses. Not in a calculated way, but in a natural, grounded way. Whether it is in person or through messages, allow yourself to respond with intention instead of urgency. This communicates calmness. It shows that you are not reacting out of need, but responding MTVKH clarity. And that kind of presence is rare. Now I want to address something that many men struggle with, but rarely admit, the fear of losing her interest. This fear often drives behaviors that do more harm than good. Over-texting, over-explaining, trying to constantly validate the connection. And while it comes from a place of wanting to maintain attraction, it often creates the opposite effect, because it shifts the dynamic from mutual interest to one-sided pursuit. Real connection does not require constant reassurance. It requires consistency and emotional stability. When you are grounded in yourself, when you are not constantly seeking validation, your presence feels different. It feels secure, and that security allows her to relax into the connection instead of questioning it. Let me ask you something again. When you think about the people you feel most comfortable around, are they the ones who constantly try to impress you, or the ones who are simply themselves without needing anything from you? That answer tells you everything you need to know, because the same principle applies here. As you begin to integrate these ideas, you will notice a shift not just in how women respond to you, but in how you experience interactions overall. There will be less pressure, less overthinking, less need to control outcomes. And in that space, something much more powerful emerges: authentic connection, the kind that does not rely on tactics, but on presence. And here is where things get even more interesting, because the next layer goes beyond interaction, beyond emotional imprinting, and into something deeper: how a woman perceives your internal world. Not what you say about yourself, but what she senses about you without you saying anything at all. And this is where most men either create a strong, lasting attraction or unknowingly push it away without understanding why. What a woman senses about your internal world is something you cannot fake for long. You can say the right things, you can follow all the advice, you can even appear confident on the surface, but beneath all of that, there is an energy you carry that reveals who you truly are. And women are incredibly intuitive when it comes to this. Not because they are analyzing you consciously, but because they are feeling you. They are picking up on your emotional stability, your self-worth, your intentions, and your level of presence without needing you to explain any of it. This is where the deepest level of attraction is formed, not in what you do, but in who you are being while you do it. Because when your internal state is grounded, when you are not seeking validation, when you are comfortable in your own space, that creates a quiet confidence that cannot be imitated. It is felt, and that feeling becomes magnetic. Let me explain this in a way that will make it very clear. Imagine two men in the same situation. Both are saying similar things, both are behaving in socially acceptable ways, both are trying to connect. Let me explain this in a way that will make it very clear. Imagine two men in the same situation. Both are saying similar things, both are behaving in socially acceptable ways, both are trying to connect, but one of them is internally anxious. He is wondering if she likes him, if he is doing enough, if he is going to lose her interest. The other is calm, he is present. He is enjoying the interaction without trying to control the outcome. Now, from the outside, their actions might look similar, but from her perspective, they feel completely different. One creates tension, the other creates ease. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you move, the way you respond, all of it reflects what is happening inside you. And if there is insecurity, neediness, or pressure, it will show up no matter how well you try to hide it. But when there is clarity, self-respect, and emotional stability, that shows up too. And it creates a completely different experience for her. Now I want you to pause and ask yourself something honestly. When you are around a woman you are attracted to, where is your focus? Is it on enjoying the moment and understanding her, or is it on being liked, being approved, being chosen? Because that difference in focus changes your entire energy. When your focus is on being chosen, you give away your power. You start adjusting yourself to fit what you think she wants. You lose your natural rhythm, and she feels that. But when your focus is on connection, on shared experience, on mutual discovery, something shifts. You become more grounded, more authentic, more yourself, and that is where real attraction begins. There is a concept in psychology called emotional congruence. It simply means that your external behavior aligns with your internal state. When there is alignment, people feel it as authenticity. When there is a gap, people feel it as something being off, even if they cannot explain why. And in dating, this plays a huge role. Because women are not just responding to your words, they are responding to your congruence. Let me give you a relatable scenario. A man tells a woman he is confident and secure. There is a concept in psychology called emotional congruence. It simply means that your external behavior aligns with your internal state. When there is alignment, people feel it as authenticity. When there is a gap, people feel it as something being off, even if they cannot explain why. On the other hand, a man who does not even talk about being confident, but naturally moves with calmness, listens without trying to impress, and expresses himself without fear of judgment, creates a sense of trust, because what he shows and what he is internally are aligned. This is why self-work matters more than strategies, because strategies can only take you so far. They can help you avoid obvious mistakes, but they cannot create genuine attraction if your internal state is not aligned. Real change happens when you start building a relationship with yourself. When you understand your own emotions, when you are comfortable with your own silence, when you do not feel the need to constantly prove your worth. And I know this might sound deeper than what you expected, but this is exactly why most men struggle. They focus on external tactics without addressing the internal foundation, and without that foundation, everything else feels inconsistent. So, here is something practical you can start working on. The next time you find yourself overthinking an interaction, instead of trying to fix the situation externally, bring your attention inward. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Is it pressure? Is it fear of losing her? Is it the need to be validated? Just noticing it without judgment starts to create awareness, and awareness is the first step to change. Another powerful exercise is learning to be comfortable with uncertainty, not knowing exactly where things are going, not needing immediate clarity, not forcing outcomes. Because attraction, real attraction, thrives in a space where there is room to explore. When you try to define everything too quickly, you limit that space. But when you allow things to unfold, you create a dynamic that feels natural and alive. There was a man who once shared a transformation he went through. He said he used to approach every interaction with an outcome in mind. He wanted it to lead somewhere, and because of that, every moment felt like a test. But when he shifted his focus to simply experiencing the interaction, to being curious about the person in front of him without needing anything in return, everything changed. Women responded differently, conversations felt easier, and connections started forming without effort. That is the power of detachment, not in the sense of not caring, but in the sense of not clinging. Caring without clinging creates a balance that feels incredibly attractive. Caring without clinging creates a balance that feels incredibly attractive, because it shows that you value the connection, but you are not dependent on it for your sense of self. Now, let's bring this all together. That shapes how she remembers you. And now you have the awareness of your internal state that influences how she feels you. When these three align, something powerful happens. Attraction stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you naturally create. And here's the part that most people never talk about. When you operate from this place, rejection starts to lose its meaning, because you are no longer trying to be liked by everyone. You are simply showing up as yourself and allowing the right connections to form. Some will not. And that is okay, because your value is not determined by someone else's response. It is grounded in who you are. I want you to imagine your future interactions from this perspective. Walking into a conversation without pressure, listening without trying to impress, responding with intention instead of urgency, allowing moments to breathe, creating an emotional experience instead of performing. How different would that feel? And more importantly, how different would that make her feel? This is the shift that changes everything, and it is not something that happens overnight. It is something you build through awareness, through practice, through reflection. But once it starts to click, you will notice it everywhere, in the way people respond to you, in the way conversations flow, in the way connections deepen without effort. Before we close, I want to leave you with something to think about. The next time you interact with a woman, do not ask yourself, how can I impress her? Ask yourself, how can I make this moment feel genuine, calm, and real for both of us? That one question will guide your actions in a completely different direction. And if this perspective resonated with you, if you felt a shift in how you see connection and attraction, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you do not miss what we explore next. And in the comments, I want you to answer this honestly. What is one behavior you are going to change after listening to this? Because clarity without action changes nothing, but clarity with action can transform everything. And remember this, attraction is not something you force. It is something you allow. It grows in presence, in awareness, in emotional safety, and in authenticity. And when you understand that, you stop chasing connection and you start creating it in a way that feels effortless, natural, and deeply real.